This is another message from the underground. The voice of Free Earth, brought to you by Paul Seils, straight from the source. You are here now with a special purpose to fulfill. And you are not alone. This is it, family. It's up to us. One planet, one spiritual source, in a multitude of forms. Stay human. Protect the planet. Raise the consciousness.
Hi guys, Paul Seils with another message from the underground. So I'm very excited to have an 8-week series coming up. We're going to be coming to you from week to week with a good friend of mine, Jason Reynolds. And this series, we're going to be talking about actualizing independence. Hi, Jason. How are you? Thanks for joining us.
Great, Paul. How you doing?
Yeah, well, very well. I love your screensaver there in the background. That's great. I got to get one of those.
Yeah, no, I've been working on that one. It's taken a little while to develop, but it's coming along well now.
They've even developed the technology where like the occasional bird sounds come in the background as well. So
no, it's amazing what they can do these days.
Yeah,
5G and all, hey?
That's it. So actualizing independence. I know that's an interesting topic that a lot of people are going to be, for certain type of people are going to be interested in anyway. So I think that's a bit of a lot of people can have subjective interpretation. That's what we're dealing with at the moment around the word independence. What does the word independence mean to you?
Independence is acting without bias or need upon any outside source. So real independence is about recognizing and being aware of all those things that exist around us, but choosing to operate and become self-reliant, to become present and governing of our own space. So it's being not a result of, or not the cause of anything else, but it's in a state of being that is not dependent or reliant upon any outside source.
Well, I know some of us might have.
To me,
Sorry, you go.
I was just going to add to that. I mean, I think we put in the lead up to this, into a bit of the words that we shared, is, to me, independence, it is the only way forward. And that's probably what I really want to talk into, is independence, how it sits in comparison to something like community, which is so driven into our vernacular and ideas and expectations of what we need to move forward. But to me, it's the more in the approaching of sovereignty and the moving towards independence. We need to understand how that all works together, not from a legal standpoint, but from our own personal governance of our own being and our own state of self.
It's definitely the solution, the way forward. And I think as we're sort of sliding towards more socialistic sort of concepts and styles of government and that sort of thing, it seems to be the only solution, and that's what we're about, as well as the transformation of the individual, and not having so many people out there sort of like waiting and looking for the government to tell them what they could or should be doing, or waiting for decisions or leaders to be elected before they're fully empowered and out to fulfill on what's important to them and themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important. So, in my understanding, we can't change anything unless we understand it. Like, until we take ownership of the situation, we're not going to advance it, and we're going to continue to complain about why this thing keeps showing up in our life. But it's ironic to me, the amount of noise that's being made of governments that is noise that's not backed up by a clear point of actioning and embracing of oneself, and how to become more present and not contributing to the very environment or the very thing or the monolith or the Goliath or whatever it is that they believe that they're fighting against. And that's, to me, it's one of the most inevitable things that exists in our life if we truly want to be independent and sovereign, is accepting ourselves, without compromise. It is being able to look deep within what it is that we are, not who we are and who we've become. But the government only exists and continues to keep making decisions where those that are not. And many people don't take notice of the government. Many people stay away from the influence of the government, and they only do that through their own level of self-education. And that comes, first of all, not just from fighting against or pointing fingers and let's get together and band together against these guys and these guys are bad. that has to come from a cultivation and a maintenance of self-belief within our own self. And to me, we talk about things that are pandemic in the world. The lack of self-belief that exists, is probably the greatest pandemic, which allows us to start to even want to be worthy of our own attention. We know our attention's important because we continue to keep directing it to others in order to receive what we've been seeking, which is love. So we understand these things unconsciously. We probably haven't put them together consciously at times, and there's many confusing ideologies, philosophies, and around the spiritual and New Age movement in order to find our own empowerment, that are compromised by different interpretations, rather than, we are being called at the moment to step into our own space. I mean, the thing that is within us is rarer than anything else that exists in our observance, in our experience, because we individually are extremely rare. And what exists within us is a slither, a spark of what is completely unique and individualized within each of us. For us to find that is not a simple task. It's by no means complex, but it becomes complicated by the stories at which we become indoctrinated, take on without basis for discernment that, our culture as a collective has largely lost. Yes, we can see when people are being deceitful and lying because we observe it and we get told maybe that's the case. But our ability to be able to receive information, observe information, and not just oppose it in voice, but oppose it in action by creating something that is inspiring us rather than having our attention drawn away by things that we don't like, that we don't want. And what we don't probably recognize is the loop that we keep putting ourselves in as we fight for freedom from a government that never had our freedom. As we fight against corporations that, to not do things. I mean, we were the one that allowed in the first place, and to complain is not going to create much difference. I mean, activism's been a thing of the past and it's about creating voice, but we've got a platform around the world that it's already an activist. It's already speaking out. And it's our ability how to use these technologies in a much more efficient way, rather than complaining about censorships that we've imposed upon ourselves that are now just becoming manifested in these, or corporations around the world as supposedly controlling our communications. They're not at all. It's the way in which we use it. And it's always been the way we can all create, we can all do, we can all become, but the way in which we do that is very different. At the point at which we step off that pathway that we're on and we decide, oh, that'll do. That's what we need to recognize in our life. All those things that are unresolved and incomplete, they continue to keep returning to us. If we don't evolve, it'll continue to revolve, as someone once said. But it's really about, at times, which is challenging, an absence of engagement in our own life, and as far as what we are here to create, connecting with that deeper spark within us, not through some weekend spiritual practice, but through a commitment and a constancy of understanding the what that we are. Not wrapped up in the ideas of a higher self or a Brahman or a God within and every other term that may be. It's having the vitality within our own selves to want to explore what it means to us, not what we're being told. Yes, there's certain steps and stages we need to go through to find our own independence, but it needs to begin with a starting point, and one ultimately that we determine. Sometimes that's clumsily, sometimes we trip across it, but whilst we continue to have answers without action, we are a part of the problem. And so to me, independence is about recognizing what it is that is here to be actualized within us, connecting with that and recognizing the responsibility. And I mean to say this is, when I say a starting point in getting past deceits, many of us shout, quite openly and commonly that I don't care what other people think of me. I mean, this is probably the greatest lie that we all tell upon our own selves. It doesn't matter how actualized we become, how aware we become. We are still impacted and affected by the way in which other people say and receive what it is that we say.
Yeah.
So we need to accept that, first of all, before we can start to change that. Otherwise, we'll be working with some ingredients that don't quite make that cake. We wonder why it keeps dropping.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like at this point in time now, more than ever, the concepts of independence are becoming, and the conversation for independence, individual independence and things like sovereignty and patriot movements are becoming more prolific than ever before. But, it's creating that self-independence, that self-autonomy. But ultimately, we're tribal beings, though, Jason. You know, I know for myself, like I have lived phases of my life to be as independent as possible. And then we have these other concepts that get thrown at us as well, like interdependence or codependence. And that's the thing, you know, the concept of codependent, if it's a codependent relationship, it's somehow dysfunctional. We're still interdependent on each other as far as our own actions are concerned and how that impacts other beings. And when you're in relationship together, there's an expectation and there's agreements that are in place. I mean, how do you strive towards the concept of independence in a healthy way and without creating as much turbulence and friction as possible?
Well, I mean, first of all is to not be inauthentic and step out of the present moment and start trying to control how other people are going to receive what it is that you authentically have to give. I don't buy into the ideas of interdependence and the fact that other people are affected and impacted by what it is that we do and that we're responsible to change that and therefore suppress ourselves to do that. That to me is part of the fallacy that continues to keep getting rolled out, and this idea of compassion towards someone else's better outcomes of life rather than being, first of all, present to our own. And this is a misgiving that, you know, it might be hard for some people to hear, but the truth is, who is our authority? What have we placed as an authority? And the issue is here, this word can be taken in many ways, as an autocratic type authority, as a mean type spirited person that rules over you. Or authority in the words as it is, an AU, it's the gold, it's the individual within, and it's looking at how it is that I author my life might be a way to look at that. But if we see the authority that exists outside of us, the thing that shapes us, directs us, and creates us is outside of us, and we are absent to that, we are absent to ourselves. And ignorance doesn't play a part here. We can continue to keep fighting against that. We can continue to keep avoiding a truth that is there, but we need to develop a relationship and understand what it is to us, whether that's, you know, through a spiritual practice of going to a church, or whether that's through a discovery of, you know, something within our own self that we come to recognize and relate to. That's up to us. So when we come to a particular point, and it is a traumatic at times, a dramatic and a deep stage of liberating fears in our life, we get to a point where we allow those, and what we're ultimately releasing there is the judgments that we have upon ourselves. When we release the judgments we have upon ourselves, we allow ourselves to not be interrupting of other people's lives in the way in which they move through their life. And many of us as parents, as teachers, as well-meaning citizens, we look to others and think that they won't be able to handle this. They won't understand what I've got to say, or they may react to this, or they might get triggered. And we take away, we steal and rob them of their ability to express themselves authentically. And ultimately, it's what we predict, what we predicate in that particular capacity as we sit there, and this is how we impact them, that we're suggesting to them we don't believe in them. We might not be saying that, but that is coming through us strong and fast. And our individual ability to becoming independent is not being affected and impacted by these things that exist outside of us, because we're all going through a journey. And that journey at the moment is, as I said before, the authority is being sought. People are looking at it through the media. People are looking at it through social media, through friends, family. Our authority needs to look no further than what it is within our own self and what it is that we want to embrace and share with the world. To suppress that, I mean, the stories of I was being nice, it is the fact that what I'm saying is I don't know how to be graceful in my own authenticity. I don't know how to speak in such a way that allows me to be understood without offending others. And you know what, at the moment, it is my priority to be able to be authentic and true to myself. And you know what, I might lose some friends along the way, but eventually I'll get the hang of this. And as I get the hang of it, eventually I could become an example of this. And as I become an example and not try to change people because I think that I'm better or more capable and they need to wake up because I'm now more liberated and aware than what they are, these become the problems. If we focus half of that attention that has been put outward for many once upon a time leaders that are now saying we all have to wake up, you have to get this, that particular line and that particular rhetoric is dead. You know, it is boring, and people that are wanting to wake up and starting to see hypocrisies which were not there previously in their world
Mm.
They don't want to be told by someone else it's time to wake up, get your shit together, get on board, you're a sheep, and all of these types of things. This is the very ignorance of the people that are supposedly awake and not independent. They're dependent on their ability to be able to be more significant or more aware than others. And the point here is everything is led by example. I don't know too many people in this world, that, especially those that want to lead and become independent, that want to be told what to do, that want to be judged by others. Now, and that means a lot of people are taking a long, hard look at themselves and looking at, well, you know what, the humility of, I don't understand myself. There's a lot of things not wrong in the world, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything for me to sit around speaking about the ills of what they've done. Now, look, there is a service and there's a requirement at times to find out information, and there's sources of information to do so. But as an individual, we need to recognize that it's information. What I then do with that, what I then move beyond, that I've just found out that the world is not the place that I thought I was living in, and there's a whole range of undercurrents that I've never seen.
Mm.
Those undercurrents are not going to go away by complaining about them and, being, school age like and complaining about what Johnny did to me. This is about, as an individual, recognizing those things are there. And at the moment, I'm listening to someone's opinion of what other people are doing, and I don't like that. And that's not a part of my life. So what I'm going to do is, how am I going to create a space where people can move beyond that and get out of the conversation that continues to keep happening, which is dependency. There is no one, there's a large movement, as we all know at the moment, or not all know, but it's fairly present, and more that has been, this concept of sovereignty.
Mm.
And then there's the legal sovereignties and common laws and all the rest of it. And, if you're not independent within your own self, signing a piece of paper is going to make no difference. It might give us a greater understanding of some of the functions and systems that the world has been operating on. But it's only going to expose a further hole of, if I'm not in presence enough, I'm not in ownership of myself, that's not going to change. I've seen people with common law feeling themselves pulling over and just being an arsehole to the police.
Mm.
That's not helping anyone. These are people that haven't had their own authority and haven't had the graces to be able to do that at that particular point, have learned something and are able now to entrap someone by looking at what I can do now.
Mm.
This is a look, mum, no hands. And, a part of our own independence is, it's not fucking easy. And that's the reason why it's so rare. And I think at the moment, there is a lot of people that are really passionate about making people wake up, come to a state of awareness. And I think that's, it's amazing. But we've got to look to it, I suppose, as why and who to wake up. There's a scenario that, in business, that if you have a particular product but you try to sell it to everyone, you'll please no one.
Mm.
You need to choose that particular niche and recognize what your target is. When you're looking to wake people up, there's a guy online called Chevron. He posts some great things, and I saw him, that claiming, because there's a recent quote that went out about, I'm here to awaken the lions, not the sheep. And I think that's a really, apt point of what's going on at the moment.
Mm.
And that's, if people don't want to wake up, they're not going to wake up. And their waking up is in your eyes, not in their eyes. And it's all relevant. There's different progressions and different states that we're all in. We don't need a community in order to grow. What we need to do is speak truth. And what is most obvious in the lack of independence is also the lack of individual organisation. And I don't mean organisation by getting your room tidy, but it is a part of it.
Mm.
I mean organisation in coming to a state of presence as to what is important to you. The ability to be able to say yes and no, the ability to have places and spaces organised in your life that are for deliberate practices, deliberate points of creativity in your life, making a priority of what it is for you to be it. And we need to be able to understand that for our own self, and then have the courage to be able to be individualized in expressing that. Because as we do, we awaken the dormancy in others that have been trying to fit in and be the same as everyone else because they didn't want to offend anyone. The vitality of life is lost. You hear it a lot on, when people talk of sports, and all the characters have gone out of the game, and they're supposed to be role models now. They're people playing football and enjoying themselves, but people complain about there's no character, there's no life in it. But then there's this screaming opposition of being politically correct, which to be honest, is just a trick of the media in my eyes. There's no one I know that likes political correctness.
Hmm.
There's the people that get rolled out as an expert on, what that means psychologically and why it's important. I mean, these ideas of fragility of our own being to become affected and impacted by a set of letters put together as a word that now deems us to label someone else as not what they are, that's an illusion. And that illusion is not going to change whilst we continue to maintain the illusion of our own relationship with ourselves. So to me, independence it's a journey, and it's an ongoing one, and it's about not saying fuck off to anyone else. It's about the ability to receive, to express, and to complete that whole process of love, which is your attention being received by yourself for no reason at all, but simply to discover, to understand, and to become present to what it is that does exist behind the stories, behind the judgments, and behind whatever it is that you've created yourself to be.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, it's the thing is as well, Jason, is that independence is multi-dimensional, multifaceted as well. So I mean, if you look at Australia as an example, I think of the population of an average of 25, 26 million people, there's currently 5 million people on benefits at the moment. That's what's that? That's 20% of the population. So there's the different aspects of independence, whether we're talking about financial health and well-being, whether we're talking about relationships, spirituality, social independence, intellectual independence, all those sort of things. So it's like maybe it's a little bit too broad to encompass. I don't know. There's a lot of different facets to that, and like I said, there are a lot of people that are moving into these fields now with common law and patriot movements that want to become sovereign and want to become independent, so that they get to choose for themselves what happens to their body, so that they get to choose how they sustain themselves, where they live, how they live.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's a great thing. I mean, it's only moving in a positive way, but I mean, I think the brochure needs to be changed. Just the fact that I go and change my birth certificate or take certain moves, I don't see 100% of those people sitting there being not fearful of getting a vaccine or wondering what the government's going to do next, or whether that bit of paper that they signed is going to be honoured by a force that comes in and doesn't honour or recognise or accept that. There's going off track a little bit, but the Australian Parliament is sitting illegally and has done for many years. But the thing is, they continue to operate, and then you got to question why that's the case. But that's a whole different scenario, and that can come into our own independence of being able to gather information. And so independence happens at so many different levels, and like you just mentioned before, that there's many different expressions and areas of our life that for some of us, just to get one of those right is a real achievement. It's a significant achievement when we choose to, in one part of our life, if we were to look at, say, relationships and financial and health and beauty and wealth and intellectual, as you're saying, and social and family, all these types of things. It's part of the challenge that we have is Paul, how deep we allow ourselves to navigate and go, and to what particular point we jump off our own information, our own relationship with ourselves, where it stops and we go, well, that all feels good and I'm getting a sort of warm feeling about it. But you know what? The police said this, or the government said that, or the authority that I look to told me this. So well, it's all well and good to have that feeling and this kind of touch within myself that I'm gonna maybe do. But the days of holding our hands in a particular way and crossing our fingers and hoping that these particular things are going to work out, we're being called to find a different level of independence. So to me, we have the capacity to be injected with something and not be affected by it. But we've got to discover that. And the thing is, for most of us, we don't even believe that. So how can we even start to look and discover how that's possible? We've got the capacity to be able to be unaffected by frequencies that are being weaponized and militarized, but we need to understand how to do that. But if we don't believe that, and we don't believe in ourselves, we're not even going to look for it. We're not even going to accept it when it's sitting right there in front of us, because for us, it doesn't exist, because that's our belief. But those particular things it depends upon what depth of independence we choose for our own self. And there's, that path has to be trodden by some people to begin with. And that's what I'm saying at the moment. The leaders are the ones that are awakening. And they might not be the traditional leader. They might not be that heavy set, deeply spoken individual that seems to have confidence in what they're talking of. It may be the people that have been misfits. It may be the people that have been outcasts. It may be the people that have been deep and overly sensitive in the past that are now finding a space to express themselves. So this is calling for independence in each particular individual beyond the social measures of what we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
So you've got, let's just say, relationships, for example. You've got finances, family. And look, in a family, you know, the old adage of going back, if you feel like you've found your own truth, we'll go and spend the weekend with your family.
Yeah.
You know, and see how
I
that
think
works
Ram
out.
Dass said, if you think you're enlightened, go and spend a week with your family.
You know, and it's, and for a majority of people, that may be true. And then you've got, you know, financial concerns of my own ability and liberty to be able to choose what I do, what I want, how I want, you know, in that way, from choice. Then we've got relationships on how I can create a relationship. And often relationships, I mean, who's got the rule book on this? Who actually, you know, says that these stories that we've created through movies and what we've observed around us, and sometimes by the not the greatest examples, we've decided what a relationship is. But at what time have we as an individual decided, what is the relationship I want? Not the one that when I start considering it that I think, oh no, you're not allowed to do, or you can't do that, or that's not right. Or no, I've got to be more giving, I've got to be less giving, I've got to be more compassionate, I've got to be more new age, I've got to be, you know, more strong and masculine. You know, what am I supposed to be these days? So all of those things, when we've got all of those noise and we're looking for independence, part of the challenge that comes with every individual, and I would say there's a good, let's, if we were to, is not definitive, but just as a general idea, we've got about 7 areas of life that we can start to look at. Now, the issue is, for many of us, and when I'm talking about before how deep we go, most of us get to a point of achieving what is a state of being free from pain, fixing the problem, getting a solution, but never creating a habit. And ultimately what we're doing is like spinning the plate. So in relationships, in social areas, and maybe financial areas of our life, let alone our business and you know, and all the other things that go with it. And as we keep spinning the plates and keeping them at a satisfactory level, that's the benchmark that we have in other areas of our life, that we do it just enough so that it's satisfying and it sort of keeps the peace. When we go deeper than that, what we find rather than 7 differences is we develop a relationship with ourselves, and that's true independence, when we come into an integrated state. And the thing is, from that particular integration, everything grows. Everything is expressed from there. We're not trying to fix the relationship. We're not trying to be someone in that relationship that we're not. We're not trying to be a different person in each group of people that we spend our time with. We're just being ourselves. And the thing is, what starts to occur is all those 7 or 8 and many multitudes of thoughts and ideas above that we're trying to keep going and all the balls in the air, we're never going to achieve that. The only way is back within our own self, and that requires us to pull ourselves away, to pull our attention out of the outcomes that other people expect of us. To say something and spend so much of our attention, oh, I wonder how they took that. Are they going to respond back to me? But what, do you think they'll take it the right way or the wrong way? Like, maybe I'll send something else. And what happens is that we live in this body, and we're a stranger to the actual landlord. We never actually know them or understand them or come to a place where we allow ourselves to embrace that. Now, this is all well and good to say, but it does require, first of all, an acceptance to be able to move forward and a willingness to move forward. And as I would say, Paul, with every time that we move forward, part of the challenge is that we got to leave things behind. And that is, I would say, one of the most challenging things for all of us, because we are so born to accumulate, to hold on, to increase our status by what we possess and what we own as a physical thing, rather than what we possess and what we own within us, because it's not measurable. People can't see that.
Well, that's interesting at this point in time as well, because a lot of us that have been on this journey, particularly for myself in the last, particularly the last 8 or 10 years, there's been like a physical stripping away. And I know a lot of people that have been on this journey as well and reached this point in time, or maybe perhaps even entering this point in time, where there's the removal of all the externalizations and the physical and the big house and the money and the big job and like all that sort of stuff, just sort of getting stripped away. It's all getting stripped away. Yeah. Which is interesting, which is sort of just leaves us with whatever we've got and whatever we're dealing with at the moment. Right. And why is it that we have developed individually and collectively this sense of dependence. And like you said, you mentioned before as well about, for some of us, it's easier for us to be critical of ourselves rather than even embrace the aspects of the self that are fully unexplored and unfulfilled or unexplored or haven't reached its fullest potential yet.
Yeah, there's a lot of answers to that, but probably the one that's most present to me is one thing that has become so silently lost, and just like it escaped out the back door, is generational wisdom.
Mm.
Schooling systems came in and started telling us what we were, how we operate, how we act. And this is nothing to do with the schooling system. That's in place. People are aware of it. They've been through it. They understand it. They complain about it when it's convenient, but then continue to put their head down back into whatever else they may be doing. So we've lost this capacity of generational wisdom where we don't get an opportunity to consider what we are, why we're here, until maybe a time of trauma in our own life, or awakening, or some sort of journey that we find ourselves going on with a backpack around the world at times.
Yeah.
As we meet different people, there's different people and they think differently to me, they act differently to me. Wow, it's a novel idea and a concept, and it may cause and spark, greater adventures in people beyond that. But this particular concept, we've allowed ourselves to not explore. I mean, this may seem like a silly thing to say, but to spend an hour with our own self each day just to understand what we are. It's such an irony that we live in the way which we do and still don't understand ourselves. And for many of us, it's because we've been told by the frailties and the deceits of psychology and these types of sciences. We've been told by other forms of science and medical behavioral, observations of what we are. And while some of those things might be insightful and provide benefit at times, people have allowed themselves to become dependent on taking that as a truth without actually really discovering or discerning or coming into contrast with that in their own self. So we're dependent because we choose to be dependent. We're dependent because we don't ask questions. And we can ask questions, but we've got to not turn them into statements. We've got to ask questions with the readiness and the patience to be able to compose ourselves to sit and listen to that question and allow ourselves to become present to what the answer may be. And one that allows us to go beyond what we already knew, because that's just insanity if we continue to keep repeating and cycling around what we were already aware of in answer to the question that we're now asking in this moment, because it's impossible for the answer to be the same, but we allow that to be. We continue to remind ourselves of what they said. So our dependency is there to the degree that we don't understand our own self. Now, this probably goes back to the point that we've been made to believe that we're broken in some way, and I don't know where this came from, but I know when I was a child and later teens, I got to somehow indoctrinated or presented to me that the nature of humans is evil, and it is to always get into.
Was that a religious context?
No, I'm not sure. I don't believe it was religious, but it may have been, or the nature of man is evil. That it is, it's always going to be corrupted, and that these sort of concepts are there. But what I'm saying is, it's just one example of many, I believe, that we're slowly brought forward in our thoughts of being flawed. And for many of us, and again through our own choices and indoctrinations, we find ourselves in life trying to fix problems. When we're trying to fix problems, it's a form of stimulation and engagement, which is what our body craves, what our life craves, is to be stimulated, to be engaged. Now, when we're not stimulated and engaged, we will do what it does within our own self that we've become habitual to, that creates that stimulation. And for many of us, to solve problems, when we've solved problems, what we don't know how to do is to sit in that particular space beyond that and create from the nothingness into some form. Because what we're expert as is creating problems. So,
or just trying to fix problems.
Well, even the fact that there is a problem to fix. But if we don't have a problem to fix, what we will do in our own capacity of manifestation, which we don't quite understand and grasp, I believe, to the degree that we need to, because it's much more simple than it's been identified. But we create a problem. When we don't have a problem, when we need some stimulation, we need some importance, we need some status, we need to show our intellect and our capacity to improve. And to do that in front of others, we'll identify a flaw and a problem that exists in ourselves or others, and we'll go about fixing that. And once we've fixed it, this is this concept of standing on the ground, digging a hole, falling deeper into that ground, and then complaining that we're in a hole, and then filling the hole back up and being celebratory of the fact that we filled the hole back up, only to be back where we started from. And it's not much different to a majority of the way in which people continue to choose to live life based upon the concepts and the dependencies of information upon others. And look, you might say, well, what the hell am I supposed to do? Well, one thing that I would
Jason,
say...
what the hell are we supposed to do?
What the hell are we supposed to do? I mean, as a starting point, we need to accept it. We need to have no excuse for it. We need to be sitting there, oh, well, that was because, when I grew up, this is what happened to me. We need to not be that, well, that's what I was shown, or that's what other people told me, or that's what I always thought. None of that changes anything except a confirmation of one's ability to not be able to change it. But if we can accept right now at this particular moment where we are is where we are because that's where we are, then we can start to move forward. At no point, and it is an impossibility, can we move forward, and I don't mean in an illusionary way, I mean moving forward in such a way where we allow that life that we were living and those moments that we were in prior to this to be let go because our engagement, our attention is now. So our ability to move forward requires us to become very present, open and honest, and what I would say authentic, in equally accepting the brilliance of the moment and the blame of the moment as we've been holding ourselves to account and tethered to this moment in the past, this flaw that we may have or a problem. Is as soon as we accept that it exists, it's at that particular point and only at that particular point that it becomes obvious on how to move forward. Because until we're seeing the whole frame in front of us, there is no solution to it. We're creating a solution on an illusion rather than, our greatest capacity is, to be able to observe and to be able to action and to complete that. And I would suggest, that's a part of nature, is awareness, expression, and completion in each and every moment, whether it's a microsecond or whether it's over many years at a macro level. It's what everything does. It has an awareness. A plant that's wanting more sun, it seeks the sun and it eventually grows in a different direction. Through that awareness, it expresses itself in taking action and it completes that first little move and it continues to keep doing that until it's achieved it. Unlike people, we might do it once and then wonder why it's not working for us. When we make a decision to stop doing something, like maybe an addiction of sorts or smoking or some sort of thing that we have become dependent upon, when we make the decision, that's it, I'm not doing it. If we make that decision out of pain, we'll continue to have more pain, and next time it comes up, and we'll fight against ourselves in actually not having one. We need to find a state of ease and acceptance of, wait a second, this situation exists because when I am not feeling good, what I do is I go and grab a cigarette. And when I have a cigarette, I sit there and I don't enjoy it. And I continue to bring myself further down and question what I'm about. And I start to rip apart my own self-belief and my own fabric. So what happens is then I find it difficult to make another decision, and it starts this continual cycle where I become stimulated by, no, I don't, yes, I will, and I'll have one, but then I'll justify it and I'll keep going around in that circle. If we can accept that that's happening, then we go, oh, what the hell am I doing? I've got to change this, it's obvious. But if I don't accept that that's actually happening or I'm doing that, I'll never change it. I'll continue to keep complaining and saying, geez, cigarettes are hard to get rid of. Geez, they're so addictive. Geez, I've tried everything. All the time, I just don't want one, but it keeps feeling like I have to have one, and I'm trying everything. What we need is a starting point, and, this is what is upon us now, but it was upon us 1,000 years ago. And it's just now that, I don't know. But I don't feel to be influenced by it, but there's a lot of people investing in a lot of things over this entire year of saviors that are coming. I mean, the next one's in about 14 days. The next savior that people believe is coming for them is going to change their life immeasurably in order to be able to find freedom. That thing that is coming, and however that may work.
Sorry, Jace. No, sorry,
Yeah,
that
no, I
thing
was
that's
just going to
coming.
say that thing and whatever it is that's coming or whatever occurs is only going to meet you where you're at. It's not going to suddenly bring light from the heavens above and transform you into some, illusionary fifth dimensional being that has the wisdom and capacity and freedom that others may expect. This is an opportunity.
Can I ask them for a refund then?
Well, possibly if you just got to find the starting point. Where did they?
That was a joke, mate.
No. But that's the particular point. There's nothing out there that's going to, intrude in our life to provide a great awakening that we have not wanted to meet within our own self, that we have not done the work and we've not allowed ourselves to become present to. And when I say do the work, I don't believe it's this body of work that we need to keep finding the problems in our life. It's about coming to a state of understanding. And if we just seek curiosity in our own self as a starting point, in order to just understand our own self, at the presumption that what we are is perfect in our way, not in comparison, but to us. So if we can come from a point of view that everything exists to support us, then we can go on a journey and start looking and finding those things to confirm that. Because how we determine to live our life is how we determine to live our life. Most of us have allowed that decision to be made by other people and those esteemed individuals that we've put on a pedestal at time because we don't know how to or haven't chosen to move deeper into such a point where I feel liberated. Now, we could work on ourselves for years and we can complain about how much work we've done, but if we still don't find our own sanctity, we still don't find our own liberation, independence, and freedom, it doesn't matter how much we've done. No award will be given for participation. This is about you coming to a point of your own authority and recognizing when you're complete with that in order to move forward into the next space. Because it's not a destination, it's not a stopping point. This is an experience and a relationship with life. And if we don't want one with ourselves, that can become quite painful. And it will become painful. And we'll have these illusionary manifested disease, which sadly many people die from every year, and significantly. Cancers, of all forms and every other, identified disease that comes that seems to be manifested differently in every single individual because it's an individual expression. These are not things to be fearful of. It's only ourselves that we're fearful of, and it's the crying out of that particular part within us. It's trying to get our attention as we've been so absent to it. And that's where disease comes from, quite simply, as we allow ourselves to be the vessel for other people's needs, for other people's purposes, because we're not choosing to engulf our own self on our own journey and moving towards our own fire. That's where we can we can complain as much as we like, and we can look to our own different degrees of victimhood that we all possess in some form, where we get to a point where we just want to break, but
Yeah.
that particular break, that comes in the most soft and willing embrace of our own self, in the nurturing, but that requires that radical honesty. It requires an ability and a capacity to develop our awareness to a point where it is ours. It's not anyone else's. It's not driven by anyone else. It's not shaped or biased by anyone else. And I won't say that that's easy to do, but I would say that that is simple to do. But it starts with getting to a point of recognizing the starting point. Because if I recognize the starting point in all of its glory and all of its challenge, I can then start to realize, wow, I need to do something about this. And I'm going to. From a place of ease, from a place of presence. Look, Paul, in the same way that if you went to build a house and the foundations weren't solid and you knew you were going to spend a lot of money on building that house,
Yeah.
but the foundations weren't going to support it, you're not going to just continue on and just complain, well, I've done so much work on houses before, I shouldn't have to do more on the foundations. I've put my time in. I've done what I need to do. That's not going to cut. The house is still going to fall down. It doesn't care what it is that you feel emotionally or what you think about emotionally or how that impacts you. It's about coming present to what actually exists and how I can become creative and I can become enlivened within my own self to contribute something that is so unique that it brings tears to my eyes, and it brings a releasing and a letting go as I back myself, as I move myself forward into my own exposing, not for anyone else's pleasure, but for the embrace that I give to my own self.
Yeah. So that's great, and thanks for sharing that. I'm just wondering, like, what it is that, as the human condition, that has us fear independence. What is that?
I think there's a large part. I think it's very native to be independent. I think it's extremely native, not natural, but native to be independent. I think that's, shown in, in a lot of ways within each of us. And I think it's part of the tragedy that we go through and how to actually do that gracefully. Because as I said, and I don't want to get people confused here, the independence is not about screw you to everyone else. Independence is about the opposite of that. It's about taking full governance of our own self so that what we do in our own life becomes not only an example, but, a possibility. So it's when we truly can become self-sustaining of our own attention and love that we don't need or require it from someone else. But it's beautiful and we appreciate it. And we start to see people as they are, not as we'd like them to be or need them to be because we've got some hole or void that we need to fill.
Yeah, because it can become a reaction. I know that some people might have been through experiences before and they end up deciding that they don't want or need anyone and they're going to be reclusive and they're going to like get away, check out of society, and they're going to almost like become into isolation, become a bit of, hermits and move from a reactionary space.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, that's that comes back to the presence of the individual wanting to really truly recognize the starting point. I mean, if we don't want to see the big black thing in the corner, and we want to ignore that its existence, and it's it's there, and it's fearful, and it's unknown, and it's it's undefined. That thing that is there that we might call a darkness, but it's just the unknown. When we don't want to embrace that, of course, we're going to run from it and we're going to put any label we want to it. But we all have that capacity within ourselves to know when we're being honest. And when we start to have a society where more people have the courage to be able to do that and move towards it, not just all today, but progressively. And it's when people make that decision that's important, that things shift, energies shift. It's not about going through a 15-year process of finding yourself, and by no means should it ever take that long. But what I'm saying is that when people make that decision and head in that direction, energies and possibilities shift. And it's about being able to read that from a greater sensitivity to move towards it. But the aspects of independence, our greatest challenge is our own self, to accept what we are. It's not found in someone else's arms, but it can be very comforting at times. It can be extremely, what it is that we may need. I'm not saying to avoid that. I'm saying to receive that in its fullest effect. What I'm actually saying is to do so from a place of understanding yourself. I mean, we learn in such a way where we don't get to know much about ourselves, except that, when you get to school, you learn these things. And we're fed so much information, but we're never actually taught how to use that machine. And that's a real rudimentary way of looking at it. But how to actually process information? Do I just keep storing it and taking it on? Is this the way that I'm supposed to be learning? And then we find out at some stage in our life that doesn't serve us, or that we've just become robotic in our way to respond to and remember things that we once were indoctrinated with over and over and over again to slam out of us any level of creativity. So we can recognize, accept that we can complain about it, or we can do something about it by finding our own way of expressing ourselves. And it's to me that's where real freedom is found, in the way in which we express ourselves, that we're not finding ourselves holding back, limiting, restricting. It's that holding on to information within our own self. And what I suppose at a deeper level is not being recognized. We'd said a little bit that's before, that when we hold things back, we're ultimately living in judgment, not only of ourselves, but of others, because we believe other people can't deal with it or handle it, because we believe they're weak or incapable in some way, which is a complete lie. But the truth of every particular person, no matter what physical function they seem to be in, has a resilience and a capacity far beyond anything that can be measured by any science that exists these days.
That may be true, Jason, but certainly some people more so than others. I know that, I've learned to be much more gentle as I sort of get older in my ways and seek permission. And some people are certainly not ready for certain things before others. And exactly. I've been accused at the best of times of being a little bit too a little bit too zealous and a little bit too, passionate or even significant or intense at times based on, what inside my context of my commitment for what's possible at the moment,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, absolutely, Paul. I think everyone goes through that, and that's why I suppose I was talking as a great point around independence. Is a lot of the times that we live our lives trying to fit into what we believe is expected and the right thing to do, and our assumptions of our particular perspectives and what we hold on that compared to someone else's is very different, and we can become offended and frustrated when we do something believing we're on the same page as someone, but they take it in a different way. And that's just a matter of recognizing the difference and accepting the difference in others without taking offense to it. But if we understand ourselves more, and as I said, I don't believe it's easy. I don't believe it's difficult, but it's a matter of going through and deciding to move into that space more often. But the point being, of course, when we become present to our own self, we're not going in and trying to force anyone to do anything in a particular way. That's never the case. When we're engaged within our own self, of course, we become present to the moment around us, and we're not going to walk into someone who's frail and expect them to, lift boxes and do a whole range of other tasks that we wouldn't expect of another. We pick what it is that we have to say. We don't need to be offensive by purpose. There's a matter of when we come to understand ourselves, at what point would we need to say something that's going to be offensive or challenging to someone else if it's not the truth? If we're just saying it to elevate our own ego as far as what we know and what we believe other people should do and be interrupted, I mean, it's great to have truth and speak that, but to also be uninvited, into someone else's life. Speak the truth about yourself and what it is that you're about and what it is that's relevant to you, that's in your shaping and your controlling and your expression. But until someone comes to me in their life and says, what me wanting to get involved in theirs, well, it's not for me to do so. It doesn't matter how many cries or pleas there may be. It's about seeking, like you say, a level of permission. Well, do you want me to share with you? Rather than looking that I need to be the savior because this individual, maybe they're just expressing themselves. Maybe they're just releasing. Maybe they don't need someone else's help. And the thing is, for that particular individual, if they can't say, hey, I need your assistance, they're never, and the sad thing about this, they're never going to receive it. It'll be a temporary experience that might be, from a hug, and it's a matter of assessing that as an individual. But we've got deep levels of compassion and empathy that exist in all of us. This is where this type of conversation can trigger someone into going, oh, screw that, I'm not independent. We've all got to be there for everyone and we've got to do these things. Look, the greater the independence, the more it is that we want to embrace community, the more it is that we want to work in such a space with other people, because we realize in our true form what it is that we have to offer, and we're ready to offer that. When we are not independent, we go into spaces and generally confuse those spaces because we just want to have authority, we just want to change, but we're not sure why it is that we're there. And sometimes it's about humility at times, especially like these, that if we are fighting against, and I'm saying this not because of ignorance, I'm saying this because of it's everyone's choice how they see things. But if we were fighting against a global monolith that controls and impacts banking systems, medical systems, universities, every aspect of our foreseeable experience. If that was the case, there's some questions to be asked. Why would people go to such a degree of organization? Why would they go to such a degree of deceit? Why would they go to this over not just a couple of years, but as some people thought, maybe a couple of 100 years, and they look deeper into it, it might go into 1,000 years and even beyond that. Why is it that they have become so organized? What is it that they are requiring from me? Why is it that my attention is so important to be directed and guided by these individuals, to be controlled by them? Why is that the case? What is it that they are seeing in me that I am not seeing in myself? Why is it me, as someone who I believe to be, generally speaking, as insignificant, is not someone that's going to change or having the capacity and the power to impact? Why is it that my attention is so often distracted by the next pandemic, the next problem, the next opposition, the next savior? Did you hear what they did? What's happening in the election and everything else that's there? All these things they're entertainment. we've got to have a capacity in our own self for creation, and that's what we're here for, is to create. So that's one part of, like, why would that monolith that I'm trying to fight against and complain and point fingers at and create memes, if it's not for comedy, you know, and which is a large part. I said, I think it's ironic and it's interesting, but it's not about getting into, well, what I'm going to create in order to create a change in that particular way, in a way that enlivens me, not that just I'll see what happens. This is being patient and finding a time to how I want to express myself to create a difference. That's one part of it. Why are they doing that? Well, and that's a question that I believe all of us should ask if we believe that type of thing exists, is what is it they are seeking? What is it they're seeking to control from me? The other part of it is, if it was the case, the example that is provided is brilliant. And it works with a function that the highest expression of energy is through organization. Something that's cohesive, that is integrated, is highly organized. Now, this particular entity that's there and the degrees to which it's organized provides example of an individual to become actualized, aware, and present to what it is that they want to create, to such a degree that they can execute it in a very organized way, not just today, but in the longer term for generations beyond. Now, whilst there's a greater level of organization in these things that we're looking to oppose, there's an energetic structure that sits beneath them and has done for a long time. That, in its own way, is crumbling. But I'd suggest to you, if that thing crumbles, there will be other things to replace it as people choose to not take attention of their own selves. They'll find other things to be distracted by. It doesn't matter how much peace, how much love, and how much, fortuitedness there may, if that's a word, there is in this particular existence. It doesn't matter if we're not observing and we're not becoming to a journey into our own selves and learning how to action that, learning how to express that, how to do so independently. And when I say action, I don't mean, bold, obvious movement. I also mean the choice to stop, to relax. Not stopping for avoidance, but stopping by choice. I mean presence. I mean knowing when to move and when not to. So we've got to look at that level of organization. What could I create in my life? What if I never complained again about anything, as much as I wanted to, as much as it pissed me off? What if I directed each little ounce, each little aspect and molecule of that energy towards what I want to create? What would happen? And you tell me right now that I would suggest it would be impossible for any sort of entities that are supposedly, because I won't put words in other people's mouths, existing and controlling. They wouldn't. And that's the challenge. What I'm presenting, I suppose, in these 8 weeks is the idea of independence and how to actually move towards it in such a way where you become true to yourself, where you question yourself. Recognize, the information I'm seeking and receiving from others. It's interesting. But how do I now, what is it, the stream that's in my life that river that's running, and where is that heading, and what am I creating with that? What do I want to bring? And start from a point of humility that I don't know. And every time I say I don't know, I'm going to find more about my own independence, because I'm actually becoming humble to go, well, no, I don't have the answers. I'm not going to mimic what I was told. I'm not going to repeat some fact to some level of intellectual, status. What I'm going to do as an individual is I'm going to, well, you know what? I have heard all those things, but actually I don't know. And I kind of move forward. Well, actually, I don't know here. And as we start to see there's so many things we don't know, we start to embrace outside of the darkness. We don't allow that darkness to continue to follow us because we continue to pretend that we know all about it, whilst we continue to live our life fearful of jumping into what's known, what's unknown. And that's, you said before about fear. I'll leave it with that. Into that is that fear is just the manifestation of our own ignorance and what we've been led to think about things, because it's never ever what we've imagined to be in a fearful way. That particular concept of the way in which we use intuition and imagination, these two noble senses that are a part of us, and not something we create or that we learn to do through kindergarten. These are concepts of noble capacity that exist and are part of our energetic being. And when we start to use them to use our intuition to feel into how many people don't like us, when we start to use our intuition to feel into why things are not going to work, when we use our intuition to become so certain of our doubts, that's when we turn the sickness upon our own self. When we use our imagination to recognize our own fears, to amplify what it is that we haven't experienced, haven't moved into, but have chosen to be that that's a bad thing, that's a wrong thing, whether that's towards a person, a space, an individual, an idea, or whatever it may be. Anything that's not explored and come into our own consideration for us to be able to express ourselves and explore into, past the I don't know, but the continuation and the willingness for I don't know to understand and receive more information until such time that you're inspired to act. Not acting out of fear, ignorance, arrogance, because I've just got to get it done. Find the patience in life, for God's sake, for all of us. There has never been anything that created that has been started in pain that hasn't ended in pain. It's not possible. There'll be temporary release, and it might be a continual pushing and charging forward. And I've seen this many times with my people I've come to work with, is those that have been started in pain, that have become the result of pain. And they start to make that choice to get away from it. And it is a big stimulation and maybe a very traumatic event in their life. But because they spent so much time moving away from it and creating, they might have created something phenomenal. But the fulfillment that's not there is because the pain is what's driven this, and to be able to find peace with that is a challenge for all of us. But we need to, if I could say something, would be, ease is the most liberating state. Some may call it peace, but to me, ease is when we choose from our own independence, that we recognize that there's fires going on around us. There is people that wanting to attack us. There's some challenges, and there's also some beauty and love and presence that, is magic in our life. Our ability to recognize all of those things existing, but I don't need to fix them, is a state of ease. Because before I noticed them, they were there prior. There's no emergency to address them right now. What there's an emergency to do is to get into a state of ease and be present. And from that particular place, we can start to create from an unbiased, uninfluenced state where we start to recognize, well, do I actually have anything? And that's where a lot of us avoid ease, because we have to then come into a place of recognizing what we don't have or want in our life, and then we don't know how to do that, but we've been playing this charade with our own self that we're on top of it all, trying to look good for others. The independence is that ability at this particular point to come into that space, to be able to accept ourselves, and then to be able to move through into our own expression of what we are. And that's that's beyond that fear, starting from ease, creating an ease, but continuing to ask questions until we feel it come alive within our own self, until we're inspired, and make that a habit until you become inspired. Once you're inspired, and then move forward. If you're not inspired, and I mean enlivened in your body, where it's just, I can't wait to do this, from a state of ease, not radical reaction, but from a state of ease and going, this is contained within, I feel this energy, the enthusiasm arising, and I'm going to start moving forward and doing this. And I'm going to continue to keep doing that, and I'm going to bring that enthusiasm, that inspiration, through questioning, through letting go, through being present and aware of what it is I need, my preparedness to ask for help, and my desire to recognize that what I'm about to create is significant and it's going to challenge me. And when I do come to a bit of a hurdle, I need to understand what to do. And I'm going to ask some questions, and I'm going to be patient and humble with myself, and recognizing I'm probably going to make some mistakes. But my intention is to get to the end. My intention is to keep moving through until I complete that, so I can be ready for my next movement forward. But it's got to start from inspiration. And it's a good indicator within our own self. If we don't have that, there's a range of unresolved tickets on our desk.
Yeah. Unresolved tickets. But talk about like moving forward as well. So thank you. We might close out on this episode for Actualising Independence, or particularly episode 1 of Fear of Independence. Anything else you want to leave us with in closing before we?
I really, there's a lot that we've, I suppose, covered and gone through, and some of it may, bring, some responses or outcomes, and I would encourage that to be expressed. The whole particular point of when we confronted with ideas that oppose us,
How dare
There's
you?
Yeah, well, there's a capacity to be able to hold that space in your own truth. It's not there to be accepted, it's there to express yourself and allow people to purge what it is. You're not there to take offense to it. And it's the same as when we're expressing ourselves with the friends and our family around us. Share what you've got to say, and when someone reacts and responds, celebrate that. Don't get offended and that they've called you, because that's not who they always are. That's not who they are as a person. And don't, imprison them in such a way because they said something offensive to you. Now you want to hold that over them. Recognize that when you have the liberty and freedom to express yourself, that other people may do, and it may not be in a way that is as graceful and pre-prepared as what your response was. And understand that if you can allow that to occur and to not hold ill of someone in that particular space, you encourage them to explore and express themselves without needing to go into violent apology. I'm so sorry for what I did. I didn't mean this. Rather than going, you know what? I did it, and geez, it feels good. It's like a big cry. So what I'm saying is recognize where you're starting from. Don't try to influence others. Become influencing of yourself and find the starting point. Independence is a journey that you can only take once you begin with where you are.
Awesome. On that note, we might close out, Jason, and we'll continue the conversation next week. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening in. Jason Reynolds, thank you for your time.
Thanks heaps, Paul. And really enjoyed it. Look forward to the next one.
Great. Thank you.
Bye, mate.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to another message from the underground. Want to know more? Head over to Facebook and search for our private Facebook group, Messages from the Underground, or visit www.messagesfromtheunderground.org. To connect with Paul Seils, please visit paulseils.com. Stay human, protect the planet, raise the consciousness.